Welcome! My name is Like It's 1985, and today we are going to take a look at Transformers Generations Deluxe Class Bumblebee. Let me go ahead and start off the review by going over just a couple different things that are potential issues. In terms of the overall color, there are issues with the tone of color. There's a little bit of a mismatch. This is actually, I believe, paint here on his forearm, whereas the rest obviously is just plastic. So there's a slightly different tone of yellow between here and the rest of the yellow plastic. Overall, the yellow plastic, I think some people have said, is a little bit too light. To me, it doesn't really bother me, but certainly we've seen depictions of Bumblebee both in toy form and in comic or cartoon form where maybe it was a different shade of yellow. But as it is, it doesn't bother me too much. I've heard some people mentioning the color being an issue or the shade of yellow, but it doesn't bother me too much. There is this bit of back kibble here, and it's not the fact that it's kibble that bothers me, it's the fact that it's supposed to peg into a slot here, but it pegs in very loosely, so you have this bit flapping around. It's kind of annoying. It's supposed to, I believe, peg in like that, but you move the figure around and it tends to collapse like that. And then you have this piece hanging between his legs there. So there's that. There is definitely kibble with the doors here. It doesn't really bother me because that's pretty much a iconic look, especially with the movie portrayal of Bumblebee. We have the doors here, and with other car-based Transformers we see the doors here, so that doesn't really bother me. Although this is all one piece, so as you're rotating the shoulder, that goes with it. So that whole door assembly goes with it around, as you can see. So that's not great. That's a design issue, I think. I mean, it doesn't really bother me too much because mostly I'll be posing it, within a certain range limit, but still it moves with the whole shoulder. So that is an issue or a potential issue to some people. So with that said, let's take a close look at the figure. As you can see, the head is the homage to the Generation 1 style of head for Bumblebee, which I prefer. I like that. I like it very much. It's neat to have that particular style on a more modern looking Bumblebee, and by that I mean a Bumblebee based on a Camaro or sports car alt mode as opposed to the VW Bug in the earlier 1980s cartoon. So I do like that new, or I should say retro Bumblebee head on a new type of body. So it's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and take a look at size comparisons here. So we'll take a look at him next to Reveal the Shield, Universe, Classics, whatever you want to call them, Generations, Jazz. And we'll do a size comparison here with the, I guess you call them the Classics, Reveal the Shield, etc., Bumblebee. So there's a look at that. He actually is a decent size, especially here in robot mode, and in vehicle mode he's actually not a bad size either. That's different with the hoist slash trail cutter figure, where the vehicle mode was much smaller, and disappointingly so. But with this figure in vehicle mode, as we'll see, not too bad. So there you go, look at size comparisons with a couple figures from the Classics, Reveal the Shield, Generations, Universe, whatever you want to call it, line. With that said, let's go ahead and get articulation out of the way. Looks like his head is a basic swivel joint. He does have light piping. There you can see that. As I mentioned before, shoulders go around and they take the whole kibble with them, which is bad. I do like the design here with the shoulders, with the bits of the headlight assembly here on the front. I do like that design, actually. You got I guess you don't have a swivel. There actually doesn't look like there's a swivel at the bicep, actually. There's no swivel at the bicep. You do have a bend and a rotation at the elbow. However, below the elbow there is no articulation. This is one solid piece of plastic. In terms of waist articulation, he's got waist articulation, as you can see there. Standard ball joint hips, as you'd expect. Swivel at the thigh, as you'd expect. Bend at the knee there. And that's the reason it can bend that far is due to the transformation. And then you have the ankles, which are I don't know what kind of joint that is, but you do have movement side to side and, you know, back and forth like that. So there is that articulation. Now, weaponry. He does actually come with, well, technically it's one weapon because you can combine these, but as far as display purposes, of course you can put them in his hand like this. There's actually a peg that's articulated, and I'll show you that in a bit here. So you do have this type of effect, dual wielding Bumblebee, which is actually a good look for Bumblebee, to actually have a dual wielding weapon. So there is that. Then there's actually a peg hole underneath the forearm, and you can peg those in here for like the underslung dual wielding weapon look, I guess, which is pretty cool actually. So you have this type of effect going on if you want to. And these two halves do combine into one weapon. So go ahead and move the peg back. Just line up the slots and the tabs. And these two parts will come together. And then rotate one of the handles down here, and you have yourself one BFG. So, whoops, come on. Actually, it's a little bit disappointing that he wields this rather loosely. Well, I guess it's in there now, but so there you go. There you have that pretty big weapon there. It's got not a lot of nice detail here on this clear translucent part of the weapon here, if you can make that out. Lots of nice detail there. Okay, so transformation time. Well, the arms actually could not be simpler. Basically what you want to do here, you want to take this whole section here, straighten it out, simple as that, and all you got to do is straighten out the arm and bring it up like that. Not a whole lot really to that part of the transformation. So again, straighten this thing out here, bring up the arm, hide it behind the front door, and you are done with the arms, believe it or not. Next, what you want to do is the head is on a central column. This whole chest section will slide up, very similar to the way that Voyager Bludgeon from Revenge of the Fallen transforms. So I'm going to grab onto the torso here, and you'll see his head disappear. You'll have this central section here. So, looking at the back here, here's the backpack I mentioned about before. You want to take what is the part of the hood here, expand this out. You can see the windshield there, like that. Now, looking at the legs, you want to take the feet here, rotate them back, and you're rotating them back such that you actually have, you want to have this part connect to that part here. So I'm going to line these up, and there's a tab and a slot, again like that. Tab and a slot, so just bring them up, line them up like that, and then fold back the legs here, and these will kind of tuck underneath the roof there, and the rear section of the vehicle will tab into place. You can see there. So once you're finished with the rear section here, go ahead and take the arm, or I guess the sides of the car now, and rotate them down, and then there's a hinge here. Push this forward, and you have some tabs and slots here. You want to make sure everything lines up and tabs into place. That. So looking back here at the end of this section right here, there's a tab, and the tab is going to go underneath the bits of plastic here. You can see how that's all should all tab into place. And as you can see, you may have to fiddle around with it until you can actually get everything tabbed and correctly lined up. And then finally, just a matter of tabbing in the doors. Pop those in, and do the same thing over here, of course. And this go around the figure once again, or the vehicle mode, just make sure everything is actually tabbed into place. You can see this came loose here. We'll go ahead and get that in there. There we go. Now, you'll notice there's a gap there, and I don't think that's a mistake on my part. I think that's by design, because I don't see any other way to actually get everything to fit together and somehow compress that section together to actually eliminate that gap. So I think that gap is there just because it has to be there. So there is that little bit of gap there, because everything else fits in just nicely and snugly. So I think that's just a design issue and not a transformation issue. So there is vehicle mode. I do like sports cars, so this mode does appeal to me. Let's take a look all the way around here on the bottom, the back, front. Okay, so moving on to size or scale comparison. Well, here is Jazz in vehicle form next to Bumblebee, and you can see there is the relation in terms of scale. Now, being that Bumblebee here is a Camaro or muscle car type of vehicle, and Jazz is a Porsche or European type of sports car, I think Bumblebee should be bigger in relation to Jazz here. That's just my observation. I could be wrong, but I think in vehicle form here, Bumblebee should be a bit bigger. But nonetheless, you get an idea of the size of this Bumblebee figure here in vehicle mode. So Bumblebee here maybe is a bit small in comparison in scale than he should be, but he's not as bad as the hoist slash trail cutter figure is in vehicle form. So a bit better here in vehicle form than those that particular mold, but nonetheless a bit on the small side in comparison. And yes, you can store slash arm Bumblebee here. You simply plug in the two halves of the weapon. There's some ports on the rear quarter panel. Plug these in for this type of effect. So there you go. There is that play feature as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a quick look at the actual comic that does come with this figure. Here is the cover art. And if you look on the inside, it does say what during what timeline this particular story takes place. Here are the credits for the artwork and the writing. And I'll just give you a general idea of what the artwork looks like. Basically, the premise of this particular mini story is that Bumblebee is basically thrown into a leadership position. Optimus Prime is actually elsewhere, and so by the end of the story we find out if Bumblebee here can successfully take on the mantle of leadership while Optimus Prime is elsewhere. Pretty nice art. I do have to sort of take back what I said about the trail cutter art in the sense that I think a lot of the artwork for the Transformers comics features expressions on the bots' faces, so it's just something I will have to get used to. That was kind of my criticism of the comic that came with the trail cutter figure, but if you look at the comic here, this also has expressions of on faces of the bots. So and there is the ending. Have a advertisement for, looks like Transformers Volume 6, Police Action. Really nice cover art here on these series. And that is it. So Transformers Generations Deluxe Class Bumblebee. Like I said, I like the old style Generation 1 style head sculpt. I don't mind the doors here. It's just that the doors are attached to the shoulders so that when you articulate the shoulders, the door kibble goes around, which is a bad thing. Basic transformation, nothing too difficult. Getting this figure into vehicle form is a bit tricky because all the tabs, you have to line them up, and there's such tight tolerances that if you get something off one place, you may have to adjust it in other places in terms of getting those tabs and slots to line up. Once you got them all there, it holds together fine. It's a solid figure in vehicle form. It's just getting there is a bit fidgety. But the transformation process is very, very basic. Alright, well, thanks for watching. This has been my review of Transformers Generations Deluxe Class Bumblebee.